Welcome one and all back into the action once again in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. It is going to be a very interesting weekend of racing here on the Nürburgring in the beauty of the Eiffel Mountains. The weather is changeable, however, the sun is out for the time being. Track temperature is 23.2 degrees Celsius. There is still relatively high humidity in the air, so it could be a very entertaining race ahead of us with obviously lots to do and lots to discuss. I'm Jake Sanson, beside me Ben Constanduros. It's been a very interesting build-up to this, qualifying very close, very even, but it's definitely going to be an intriguing first race of the weekend.
Absolutely, and for the moment, it looks to be set dry, could you believe it? After all of the torrential rain that we've had across build-up and the weekend so far, and even the forecast saying that there's thunderstorms lurking around the area. My phone was blinging with lightning storms are approaching. For the moment, look at it. It's definitely slick weather, and it's quite nice. 20 degrees air temperature.
Certainly looking pretty exciting for the drivers ahead as the cars are making their way to the grid. The combination of Michelotto and Stadtsbader for the Vincenzo Sospiri racing team managing to come through qualifying with a time of 1 minute 59.629. In fact, only 2 cars actually managed to complete qualifying, one with a lap under 2 seconds, under 2 minutes, I should say. Giorgio Sana is down on the starting grid with Jem. Let's see how he is gearing up for the race.
Giorgio, great to see you again. We're midway through the season and this year's championship is fiercely close. Half a point between the top 2 coming into the weekend.
Yes, it's a super competitive championship and we are particularly proud and happy about this. So all the guys are doing a super job. As you said, we have 4 different drivers line up in a very tight points standing. So this means that the level of the championship is growing year by year. But we are particularly happy about the young drivers, of course, but also the gentlemen, the Pro-Am category. The bronze drivers are doing also a super job. You know, it's not easy, but that's what I like, what we like in this championship, to have nearly 50 cars on the grid. It means also to be able to drive in the traffic, to manage all the difficulties that normally you should have when you compete in the GT World Challenge with the GT3. But that's the way how we like to do motorsport, to prepare all the drivers, from the gentlemen to the young drivers, to be ready to jump into the GT3 in the future.
And it's impressive because you talk about the level rising year on year, but the number of entries has risen hugely over the last few years.
Yes, the series is growing in a proper way, not only Europe, I have to say, also in America, with 35 cars on the grid and 20 cars in Super Trofeo Asia Pacific, that is restarting after 3 years of pandemic. So from the global point of view, we are particularly happy, and the news are not finished because we are quite close. In September we will announce also the schedule for next year, and there will be big news on the Super Trofeo.
Very exciting. We look forward to hearing it. Thanks a lot, Giorgio.
Thank you.
So great to hear the optimism and the excitement about the continued growth of Lamborghini Super Trofeo. It's been amazing to watch it over the course of the Americas and Asias, and obviously here in the European as well. It's been quite a competitive season after the first 2 weekends at Paul Ricard and Spa. And now we come to the Nürburgring, the halfway point of the season once this is all over, because obviously we'll have Valencia and then we'll have the double header at Vallelunga, the Lamborghini World Finals, of course. It's going to be an interesting challenge here today. But for Gilles Stadtsbader and Nicola Michelotto, it's definitely been a very interesting battle for them in terms of qualifying, to put them on the front row of the starting grid. The perfect start.
When we talk about growth, obviously very, very excited to see what's happening in the future, but there's the record amount of cars in Super Trofeo is 50, and we've got 46 on the grid here. Record ever is 50. So we are, you know, surfing at the levels of record throughout the whole of this season, because there's 48 cars on the previous entries. Let's go down to Gemma then.
We've just heard from Giorgio Sana of how tight this championship is. And Gilles, you're currently leading the championship, of course, with half a point difference.
We are second with a half-point difference, but yeah, Mattia did a very good job this morning in qualifying, which is a good start to the weekend. But obviously, we have to maximize the result this weekend to have to come out this weekend as in the first place. So let's see what we can do and hope for the best.
You need to control that start, I imagine.
Yeah. Hopefully I can get the car in first and finish the race in a good position today, and then tomorrow do the same job as today, hopefully.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Hopefully see you on the podium in just over an hour's time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Young Gilles Stadsbader, the Belgian driver, gearing himself up ready for an exciting battle. It wasn't that long ago that he was in the world of Miami karting in Europe and starting to make his climb through the ladder. So many of these incredible young talents that have come out of karting in the last 3 or 4 years and really establishing themselves on the world stage. Let's talk about the guys that are giving chase to the Vincenzo Sospiri racing team. Over at Target Racing, the number 81 car of Owen Schandorf, they're going to be starting in second on the grid. The leading Pro-Am, actually, they're on the front row of the starting grid, just 0.299 off the pace of pole position. And also, Amaury Bonduelle is going to be going from third position on the starting grid. The Lone Ranger in third position on the starting grid as well. That means he'll have a 3-second additional penalty added to his pit stop. He's not the only driver that that's going to happen for, because Leitch in the Leopard Motorsport car, number 86, will be starting from 7th position. Also, the Japanese driver Douglas Bolger is going to be starting down in the field as well. So it's going to be a really exciting battle for many drivers. Down to the grid again with Gemma.
Stefan, for the moment, you're pretty relaxed. You'll be taking the second stint. Just for the viewers at the moment, talk us through this sort of opening stage of this particular circuit here in Nürburgring, because looking behind you, there's a huge amount of cars charging into that first corner.
Yeah, finally a good quali. It was difficult at the beginning of the season to understand the new tire, but now it's okay. I think we found something interesting. So before it's really good for us with Loris was a really good lap. So now the goal is clearly to try to win the race. We are there for that, and yeah, it's really impressive to see more than 40 cars on my back, on the back of Loris for the first time, and we really hope to do a good race today. Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye bye.
Just to quickly clarify on the point that Gilles Stadsbader was making about the championship, he came to the weekend half a point behind, but thanks to qualifying, you get a single point in qualifying. As they're on pole position, they got that point and now are half a point ahead of Brendan Leach, and that is why there was slight confusion, because as of this morning, he was actually behind by half a point, and after qualifying, he's now ahead again.
He's a better racing driver than a mathematician, clearly, so he'll obviously be focusing on that once the weekend comes to an end. So obviously you've got a nice mixture of the Pro and Pro-Ams up in the top 10 actually coming into this one, because we've got 6 Pro crews up in that top 10 and 4 Pro-Ams. So obviously you've got the combination of Owen Schandorf on the front row of the starting grid. Schandorf will take the initial start, as will Matti Michelotto in the Vincenzo Sospiri racing car on the front end. Amaury Bonduelle is actually going to be starting the race and obviously finishing it, because he has no teammate this particular weekend. So he is one of the drivers with the additional 3-second penalty at his pit stop. Another of those is, I was just referring to it before we cut to the interview, Douglas Bolger, the Japanese driver who normally shares his car with Delantha, the Sri Lankan driver. He's not well this weekend and cannot drive. So Douglas Bolger not only has to take the 3-second penalty going into this race at his pit stop, he also has to do a drive-through in the first stint of the race, because he's changed his classification of driver. He is now a pro going into this race. So that's already on the back foot, but fortunately he only has to do that in race 1. In race 2, where he's going to be starting from the top 10 tomorrow, he won't have to have that problem. So it's a learning race for him today. Tomorrow is where he can really shine.
And the reason for that is because it happened after the entry list had been established. Had he made that change before the entry list, it wouldn't be penalised. But they came here, they've practiced, and Malumur feeling ill during his practice session, and that's then why they've pulled him out of the car, and Douglas then sits as the lone driver in that machine. Bonduelle, we were seeing, third on the grid. He's a lone driver. And, of course, Brendan Leach, who led the championship coming into the day, is also a lone driver and has been throughout the season. Is only on row 4, Brendan Leach, so has work to do today as we are effectively in the middle point of our championship, with Ricard being the first round of the season, Spa the second, Nürburgring this weekend the third, then Valencia, and as you said, Vallelunga, the final 2 rounds of the championship, the European Championship, and then also the World Finals venue as well. Cars making their way around this nice, slick dry Nürburgring circuit.
For the moment, at least. It is the Nürburgring, so you never know when it's going to change, but they're definitely in a good position to go racing on what looks to me, for the moment, to be a bone-dry circuit. Let's talk you through the grid for the first race of the weekend then. It's Michelotto in the VSR, alongside the Target Racing of Schandorf on the front row of the grid. Then Amaury Bonduelle will be on the second row in his BGR car, alongside the CMR of Loris Cabarrou, who will start from the second row. Then it's Liberati versus Ali, Brutal Fish versus Target on the third row of the grid. Brendan Leach will be there 7th on the grid alongside the Oregon team, number 61 of Balthazar. Then Jelmer Berman and Carol Bash will line up on the 5th row of the grid together. Abby Eaton will be alongside Pla on the 6th row of the starting grid. Then it's Messrs Berto and Testa, Oregon versus Iron Lynx. And then we'll have Pujo Bea, the Spanish driver in the Oregon, alongside Matheson in the Leopard Motorsport car. Then we have Arcadia versus Lamborghini Roma, Valkyra versus Ianello. And then rounding out the top 20, it is Grosjeck in the GT3 Poland car, alongside Pecoraro in the Oregon team car. Iron Lynx versus Vincenzo Sospiri racing again on row 11, Colombini and Lewandowski. Then it is Maloney and Rindoni, Arcadia versus Leipert. Then we'll see on the 13th row of the grid, Bruno is alongside Vandenberg. And then we'll have Feligioni and Ibrahim Badawai in the Lamborghini Roma car. Bilieri and Karim Oj in the Boutsen VDS car. Gosselin will be alongside Bossos, that is Iron Lynx versus Target once again. Then Shota Abkasaba alongside Nicola Bailly. And then we have Charlie Martin starting alongside Harmsen in the GT3 Poland car. On the 19th row of the grid, it is Krips in the Leibert and Machowski in the GT3 Poland machine. Dougie Bolger will be there 39th on the grid alongside the Van der Horst car. Then Voracek alongside Anapoli. And then all the way down in 43rd is Ludo Privitello alongside Doms. And then at the back, it is Hernandez Ortega in the BDR competition. By group from 45 cars, very nearly 50 going around the circuit. And this is the Nürburgring. You do not have a lot of room to fool around in into that first corner. So let's see if everybody gets through in fine style. There is Andrei Lewandowski, currently starting from 22nd on the grid in the number 16 car. We also have an onboard camera with the Oregon car, right up in the top 10 of Sebastian Balthazar, the German. So this is set to be a pretty hectic start.
Always is, with a massive field of similar performance machines. 46 cars on today's grid. Just a couple of cars missing. Include one of the main missing cars is Thomas Laurent and Adam Ateki. Of course, Adam Ateki is here because he races in GT3 as well, but deciding not to do the double bubble that usually he would do. Maybe that will change when he goes to Valencia, when we moved and switched to the Sprint series rather than the Endurance SRO Cup that we're supporting this weekend.
So the Lamborghini Urus has peeled into the pits, the safety car for the event. And as they come off the final turn, it's going to be interesting to see if Frederick Schandorf can get a better start off the line than Matteo Michelotto.
Very slow.
It is a very slow start. So everybody's going to be bunched up very closely indeed. And here comes Balthazar trying to get a good run off the 4th row. Everybody hoping for a decent start. Are we going to go racing straight away? We do. And Michelotto gets a very good launch off the start. Not a bad one for Schandorf, but Amaury Bonduelle looking quite threatening as they come through. So Bonduelle is going to try and make the bid around the outside to come through into second position. That won't be anywhere near good enough on the throttle to make the way round the far side as everybody bunches through 4 or 5 wide as they go through turn 1. But everybody's keeping it nice and clean. They all know that they can't win the race on lap 1, but they can definitely lose it.
Yeah, Schandorf obviously knew quite quickly that he hadn't got a particularly good start and darted to the inside line to defend the second position and was able to do so from Bonduelle. Even if Bonduelle tried to go around the outside, it does look as though all 46 cars have managed to make it through the Mercedes arena for the first time. Great effort, even if they're running nearly 3 wide in the middle of the pack.
And there is a little bit of argy-bargy potentially coming our way if these guys don't give each other enough room. They've just got to be a little bit conservative on this opening lap. Very wise from them all so far, but out in front, Michelotto keeping it nice and tidy as he breaks for the hairpin for the first time. Schandorf doing a good job of defending second position initially and now able to really open up the taps and start to close up on Michelotto once again. Amaury Bonduelle doing a fair job to keep things nice and tidy. I'm very impressed with the driving standards in this opening lap. So far, everybody has kept it on the straight and narrow. A couple of puffs of gravel coming up, but everybody just about keeping it together as they all fly through the chicane up at the top. A couple more just tripping over the gravel. A few dicey moves. That was one of the Oregon cars trying to dive through on the inside line there for the chicane, and I think they might have managed to make it through.
It's really tricky on the first couple of laps to get the to know what you've got underneath you through those very fast flick left, right, up the hill. Because if you do run a little bit deep, then you end up in the gravel and bring that on, and you can hear it pinging around behind on all the cars around. Drive-through penalty for Duddy Bolger. As we've said, he's got to take that as soon as possible, really. And then he'll have nice clear air at least. He won't have to worry about fighting with anybody. Side by side here, a bit of a squeeze from one of the Oregon cars. Logan Malley goes through, and it's followed by Brendan Leach. But is that Edward Liberati?
It's Balthazar.
Balthazar losing a couple of positions.
Very unfortunate for Sebastian Balthazar. He really got caught up there and had to basically concede and lose a whole host of positions as a result. Down into the braking zone for the hairpin. Keep it tidy, gentlemen. Abby Eaton doing a reasonable job on the start, but losing a couple of positions initially. Hopefully she can continue to work her way further forward, as can Charlie Martin, who's had a pretty tricky opening lap. They're the 55, working their way through in the middle. That is Grosek trying to come forward. So Bartosz Grocek in the GT3 Poland car, mixing it in the middle of the field. I think we're going to get to see a little bit of what happened earlier on in the lap. This is on board with the 16 of Sebastian Balthazar, 61 I should say, sorry. Oh no, this is further back in the pack. That didn't go well at all, did it? That was the 16, I'm afraid, of Lewandowski.
Yeah, he hadn't made a very good start generally, to be honest. Down in 22nd position after the first lap. I noticed even on the first sector that he dropped a couple of positions. So in the big sort out, one of the losers, and there's always losers and winners on the first lap. If you find yourself offline, you can easily lose 5 or 6 positions with such a compact and cluttered grid.
Nice battle going on between Patrick Matheson, Guillaume Pogoubert and Philippe Alberto. They're going to come flying past our position. In fact, they've already gone through. They're having such a close battle at the moment. Michelotto, Schandorf, Bonduel, Liberati, Cabarrou and Brendan Leach. So at least he's made up a position, up into 6th position. Making light work of things at the moment. Trying to dive in up the inside. That looked like another Oregon team car on the move. As Bonduel just trying to stay with Schandorf as much as possible. There is the 27 of Loris Cabarrou, just trying to work his way further forward to Liberati. But it's very tricky in these early couple of laps. Eduardo Liberati hoping to close up on Amaury Bonduel, but Bonduel has actually got more of a focus on Schandorf at the moment rather than Liberati behind him.
Biggest loser of lap 1 was Feligioni in the number 2 machine. Drops to the tail of the field and 11 seconds off the back of the field. That's the car that he shares with Coupens in the Boutsen VDS number 2. They are an am-am, but started in 27th position, so lost nigh on 20 spots on lap 1.
Up into the top 10 has come Rodrigo Testa in the number 10 Iron Lynx Lamborghini, so moving his way further forward. Iannello doing a good job as well, moving ahead of the 92 of Jim Pla. Abby Eaton has as well. This is getting to be a nice tasty little battle as Brendan Leach has made his way up to 6th position, but he wants 5th position for the time being now. Working on to the back of Loris Cabarrou again, and he has completely dropped Largim Ali, so he was down in 7th position now, with Karel Baj and Jelmer Berman having their own little battle as well behind. So this is all about confidence now for Loris Cabarrou to just try and fend off from Brendan Leach. Leach is obviously one of the title contenders and wants a piece of this nice and early doors. So down into the hairpin, he has to be very careful. He wants to make time on Loris Cabarrou, but he can obviously try his best to close in without throwing it into the grass on the far side. You really have to read the situation lap after lap. You can't just throw yourself in gung-ho and hope it's going to stop on the middle of the radius.
Brendan Leach with a very clear objective to win the championship this year in the Super Trofeo and to get himself a Works Lamborghini contract moving forward into 2024. He's been driving these Super Trofeo cars and hanging out with his Leopard team for the last couple of years, ever since really COVID kicked in. Initially driving in the 24H series, then moving in to proper GT3 racing and the Super Trofeo as well. They're always in the Lamborghini mark, and this is the year really with Lamborghini expanding all of their programs to make a massive impact on those that make the decisions, and Brendan Leach needs to win that championship, win this championship to do that. So that is where his qualifying he'll be a bit disappointed with, and he now needs to make a big impact on Loris Cabarrou, who is in the slipstream of, but not quite close enough. Ahead, Bonduel and Liberati very close as well, but neither making a change. That's a late move.
This is all about intimidation for Brendan Leach, isn't it? He wants to be all over Loris Cabarrou so that he makes the mistake. He wanted him to overshoot on the brakes, but Loris Cabarrou being very sensible. Look, I know exactly where my braking line is. I know exactly where to stop the car. You're not going to put me off by behaving like an angry wasp at a picnic. I've got my own racing line. I know exactly where to turn the car in. I'm not going to be put off. So Mattia Michelotto out in front of Shandorf still. Bonduelle and Liberati, again, a very similar battle for those two, dueling over third position, but Edoardo Liberati not going to make a silly overtaking move. He's going to wait until he knows he's got the potential to get up alongside Amaury Bonduelle and drive off the turn to make that stick. He doesn't want any sloppy driving today. Further back in the pack, we've got a very strong run from Bruno, Jean-François Bruno in the AM category, leading that one ahead of Claude-Yves Gosselin and then Gabriel Rendoni. So those three battling together on track as they battle over the AM victory. Bonduelle still trying to stay in touch with Shandorf, but looking at his sector times, he's quicker than Shandorf in sector 1, but he just can't quite get close enough to challenge him. Here goes Brendan Leach again, trying to limber up on Loris Cabarrou. And again, it's kind of a stalemate between these two at the moment, pushing very hard indeed, Brendan Leach, to try and work their way through. Largimali, Baj, Berman, Testa, Balthazar, Ianello, Eaton, Plar and Matheson. Some big moves coming through. Maloney and Pogararo have both managed to get past Bartosz Grocek. Karim Ogier has lost out to Bilieri on the lap as well, but here is your leader, Mattia Michelotto. All of this is no problem at all for him.
We'll be handing over to Gilles Stadtbader in the second half of the race, don't forget. Pit stop in the middle half of the race. And for those drivers of single entrant, they obviously don't have a driver to hand over, but they do get penalised for being a single driver entrant, so they carry a little bit of almost success time, if you like. For the rest, they will be swapping. Shandorf will be handing over to Alex Au, who they lead the Pro-Am Cup. So Alex Au, the Am, and you'll expect to see the 81 and the 71 as well drop from these heady heights that they are right now. The Brutal Fish liveried machine looking to try and get up to third position. We'll be handing that car over to Brutal Fish owner Martin Rieber.
Yes, Amaury Bonduelle really making a bit of a hash of the braking point for turn 3, and as a result almost opened the door to Edoardo Liberati without him even having to break a sweat. Car 75 under investigation for cutting the chicane. Now that is all the way down to 28th position. That is Shotaram Kasava. So the ART line car unfortunately skipping the chicane. And so therefore that will be something that the officials have to look into. Dougie Bolger has already made up a place after his drive-through penalty, so he is obviously game face engaged and trying to charge his way further back. So it'll be interesting to see how many places he makes up, because of course he doesn't have to change drivers later, but he does have to take an additional 3 seconds of stoppage time in the pit stop later. So Michelotto, Shandorf, Bonduelle, Liberati, Cabarrou and Leach, and then Largimali is there in 7th place. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Messrs Bash, Berman and Testa. We're on board with Sebastian Balthazar, who's in 11th place, trying to get back on terms with Testa.
Flat out, this right-hander at the bottom of the hill. Nice and easy. But at the top of the hill, the Lamborghini is using the slower of the chicanes. So with all the other classes that are racing here this weekend, they are through the sweeping left and right turns, which almost then becomes a braking zone into the final turn. But Super Trofeo choosing to go with the tighter F1 style chicane at the end of the lap.
So Shandorf has made a massive amount of time on Michelotto on the last lap, as Liberati had a little bit of a look on Bonduelle. Bonduelle not going to be intimidated that easily, but Shandorf made up 0.2 of a second in sector 2 and 0.4 of a second nearly in sector 3. So Shandorf is now the fastest driver on track and is now just half a second behind Michelotto. So it really is 2x2 hurrah now. We've got Michelotto versus Shandorf, Bonduelle versus Liberati, Cabarrou versus Leach. So it's going to be very interesting how this develops.
And Bonduelle's driving really defensively at the moment as well, so it's compromising the speed of Liberati behind and losing time to Cabarrou and Leach, who actually aren't, even though they were kind of fighting, they're not compromising each other's pace. Whereas I'd say the way that these two are fighting for third, there is a compromise in the ultimate lap time they're doing. Here's Abby Eaton in her number 33 in her team that she's forming this year, run by Bonaldi, but effectively in the future she wants her own formation of team to reward those that have struggled to get into motorsport in various different ways. She's sitting 13th position, and because that's a pro entry, we see sometimes her taking qualifying in race 1, and other times swapping and taking the second race instead.
And she's sharing that car, of course, with Dan Arrow, the Dutchman, as they continue to battle their way around the course with a long train of cars starting to develop behind. You've got Pla, Matheson, Puchubea, Berto, and Maloney's just about joining the back of that. But certainly a very frustrated Jim Pla trying to work his way past and can't find it at the moment. Filippo Berto joining the back of that little quintet as well. Balthasar up the road is now starting to have pressure from Ianello, and again Bonduelle having to hold the inside line to ransom from Liberati. This is where now Liberati's going to get a good exit. He's got to just keep going up to the inside line. Bonduelle forcing the issue as much as possible. They're flirting with the pit wall down to the first corner. Is Bonduelle going to be able to cut across on Liberati in time? Liberati will commit to the inside line. Beautifully done. I will not be intimidated.
I love that, and you could actually see a lock-up from Bonduelle on the outside line. He'd done all that defensive work, tried to be late on the brakes, and of course the tyre is covered in dust and detritus from a part of the circuit that isn't usually used. An instant rear lock-up for him. Otherwise he might have been able to go around the outside, but he's lost that position, and look how much ground he already loses by fighting that quite hard.
You can force me to the pit wall all you want, but I am going to have the place, says Eduardo Liberati, and now he's up into third position past Amaury Bonduelle. Right, there's more good battles starting to take shape. Eaton, Pla, Matheson, Puchubea and Berto still going, and Jim Pla really wants to get past Abby Eaton, but Abby is no slouch. She, of course, was the designated test driver on the Grand Tour, the Amazon Prime TV show. They chose her on purpose. What she doesn't know about driving fast cars in a smooth and precise manner is not really worth knowing. She's done so much driving since her younger days in various different categories and disciplines of motor racing. With a roof over her head is where she has always performed at her peak. And now with Pla, Matheson, Puchubea and Berto in tow, she's going to show them how to defend very valiantly.
So we might have had a car off at the final turn. Yellow flag fluttering for a few moments, and that has now been withdrawn. Car 22 spun right at the back of the pack to Voracek, and is now last position. And here's the replay. Actually, not even through the chicane, in the last turn on the throttle. Curious.
Just as well that the car drifted and travelled backwards a little bit to avoid the contact from anybody else, because that could have been rather nasty to suddenly find a stationary car in the middle of that apex. But still we continue. Eaton, Pla, Matheson, Puchubea and Berto. Then Maloney and Pegararo is actually starting to close up. Further up the road, and we've got Cabarrou under pressure again from Leach, and that is an absolutely textbook overtake. Unless he loses it on the exit, no chance. That's Brendan Leach.
Nice work from Brendan there, almost catching Cabarrou a little bit off guard. Sometimes these drivers kind of settle into the fact that you've got a guy behind you. You've almost try and put the pressure to the back of your head, and that is when the surprise comes. And Brendan Leach absolutely taking Loris Cabarrou by surprise there, down the inside, got the car stopped, claimed the apex, and claimed the inside on the exit of the corner as well to stop the switchback. And therefore Brendan up to 5th position. Bonduelle ahead of him, the next target, and not that far ahead either.
Cabarrou is not safe in 6th position either, because there in P7 you've got Largim Ali, who really wants to follow the manoeuvre and do likewise in the target racing number 9. So he's going to try his best to pick up another position as they come off the hairpin, up the climb, up the throttle as well, through the left-right of the chicane, and then they will come up towards the pair of square left-hand and right-hand corners, and that's when you obviously start the drop down the crest again. Largim Ali looking very hungry in there behind Brendan Leach. He obviously, behind Loris Cabarrou, I should say, sorry. He wants to try and make the bid. Meanwhile, Schandorf and Michelotto are trading sector times here. Schandorf getting very frustrated sat behind Michelotto. He would really love for a Pro-Am to get the victory in this one. I think it's still relatively unlikely, of course, because once they hand over to the second driver, then it's going to be pretty tricky for Alex Al to hang on to that same sort of pace. Not impossible, but a little bit trickier. But certainly Liberati now that he's got past Bonduel, and Leach, now that he's got past Cabarrot, will be able to see what they can really do in terms of opening up the taps.
Now, while we've been watching all of this, in the AM category, a lot has changed because Jean-Francois Bruneau was leading that in the double-8 machine for Leopard, and he's now dropped almost 10, 15 positions, down to 37th overall from about 23rd. And Claude-Yves Gosselin has inherited the lead for Iron Lynx in the number 4 machine. 25th overall, with a gap to Bigoleri, who's just inherited 2nd position. Sorry, no, Bigoleri's not in the AM category. It's Badouet who's AM in 2nd. And a change there ahead.
Yeah, Jim Pla has managed to get the move on Abby Eaton. Eaton just overshot a little bit in turn 1, then had to try and correct it in the 2nd corner, and that was enough for Jim Pla. He saw the opportunity and said, cheers, Abby, I'm off. So very nicely corrected there by Jim Pla on the way through turns 1 and 2. He set the move up nicely. And Abby Eaton clearly struggling for tyre life or whatever it might be. This is a really difficult phase of the race for her as Jim Pla. Now he's up to 14th position on the road. Well, now 13th position, I should say, on the road, having worked his way through. And now Abby Eaton's going to have to defend from Patrick Matheson.
Jim Pla, absolute star in GT3 and GT4 racing over the last couple of years, and bringing Michael Blanchimont across from GT4 into the Lamborghini Super Trofeo this year. He hasn't actually starred in the way that we have expected to see him in GT3 and 4 racing over the last couple of years. Obviously a new brand for him to get used to. Was in Mercedes in GT4, but ultimately getting his head down now with clear track ahead of him. Up into 13th position and trying to get as many positions as possible before handing over to his AM partner.
But Patrick Matheson's getting hungry and getting rather eager to get past Abby Eaton. He's clearly seen how Jim Pla has been able to get ahead and then start pulling clear. And there's definitely something wrong with Abby's car, whether it's tyre pressures or something, because in terms of her sector times, she's currently in the 57s while everyone else is in the 56s. There's the opportunity. Dives through on the inside, Patrick Matheson, but Abby Eaton does the right thing. She doesn't fight it too hard, gets straight back on the rear wing of Matheson's car in the attempt to try and retaliate down into turn 1. So she's going to try and make the move back again, but it's all going to come down to whether or not she can get the car stopped on the brakes. It's going to be late. What a decent effort from Abby Eaton, but unfortunately on the exit, that's going to be consolidated by Patrick Matheson without too much drama.
Do you know what? That could have worked for her, though, because there is that move where you go very deep into turn 1, but you claim the apex to turn 2. You stay around the outside, and she wasn't far off being able to do that. So it was a spirited move from Abby Eaton. Didn't quite work for her, but as you say, she is struggling for pace, and it's unusual to be dive-bombed into the final turn unless you really haven't got the balance through the chicane, and that seems to be where her real Achilles heel is.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if this was something to do with the tyre pressures or whatever it might be, but certainly Abby Eaton with her back to the wall at the moment, and now Pucubea and Berto in the Oregon team cars are sensing their opportunity to get past as well. Here's your leader, Mattia Michelotto, still having a very solid run up in front. There is Schandorf in the Pro-Am leading car, but is also 2nd overall, so making his point and stating his claim up front, Frederick Schandorf, the Danish driver. As we are getting closer and closer to that pit stop window opening. It hasn't opened yet, but it is about to. There it is. And so now we're going to see who blinks first. Neither of the two leaders are going to, but certainly down at Oregon, they want an early stop.
Let's not forget that those who are Pro-Am entries will keep their pros in as long as they possibly can. If you're a Pro entry, then it's more about analysing track position, where you're at, and for Brendan Leach, he's not swapping to any other driver, so he's just going to get this one out of the way because he feels maybe he can benefit from a little tweak on tyre pressures for the second half of the race. He can get some really fast laps in whilst the window is open and then inherit positions when everybody else does their pit stops. But Brendan, pretty much one of the first cars into the pits. There's only Balthazar just ahead who has pitted as well.
So only one retirement from the race so far. That is Giovanni Anapoli in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing number 60. The AM driver pulled into the pits about 4 or 5 laps ago and parked it there and then. Balthazar is going to park it, but it's for a scheduled pit stop. And into the pits comes Abby Eaton with Pucubea in tow. So the two of them are going to continue this race battle in the pit stop as Abby Eaton will get out, rather frustrated, I'm sure, and Dan Arrow is going to get in.
And we've seen Dan Arrow being the more competitive of the two of those as well. He's really absolutely on fire in the Spa races. And two Oregons parked up beside each other. Not everybody taking advantage straight away. This is where it all gets rather confusing and mixed up for a couple of laps whilst we cycle through the pit stops. There's a replay. Paramoje just getting a little bit unbalanced over the curb, and when you then apply the throttle and the car is still bobbling, it then is very hard to keep it facing in the right direction. So no harm done, just a couple of seconds lost.
Didn't exactly go according to plan, did it? And for Karim Oj, he now has to get the car back up to speed and hope he hasn't done too much damage to the tyres. Here come the leaders again. Michelotto and Schandorf still dueling away for position. Mattia Michelotto in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Team car. And then in behind him, you have the Target Racing number 81 of Frederick Schandorf. And they're still battling. They're actually going side by side on the way out of the pits. And Dan Arrow has to concede defeat, or does he? No, he's going to take it right round the outside. And Dan Arrow making a great wheel-to-wheel battle as they exit the pit lane. They almost bang doors. Brilliant racing.
And that's what Abby Eaton tried to do a lap before, round the outside to claim turn 2. Dan Arrow showing how it's done, and just being super aggressive as soon as you jump in the car, fully fired up, and gets himself that position.
Well, Pedro Ibrahim was a little bit startled at that one. I don't think he really expected Dan Arrow to be quite so eager on his first lap of the stint. So now Pedro Ibrahim's gone, right, we had the advantage there. How on earth do I claim that back again? They drop down the hill once more, and Amaury Bonduel has made his pit stop. Of course, he will not be getting out of the car and swapping to someone else. Here it is again. That's how much of a difference there was in terms of the pit stops. Dan Arrow was absolutely determined. You are not going to beat me out of the pits. The Oregon team actually did a better job on the stop, but Dan Arrow was adamant. I'm not losing this position. That was beautifully done. Elsewhere, we are back to live pictures. And as they come across the line, this is the duel between Ibrahim Badaway and Karim Oj, I do believe, coming towards us as they duel away for position. Down into the braking zone for turn 1 as the pit stops continue unabated. Mattia Michelotto and Schandorf still dueling away for the lead of the race down on the far side of the circuit. Liberati has now extended by quite some way to Loris Cabarrou. In fact, yes, the gap between them last time was 9 seconds. So Cabarrou has actually been losing a second per lap to the top 3. That is quite a startling difference in pace.
Nice and simple in Lamborghini Super Trofeo for the pit stop. 87 seconds from pit in to pit out, unless you're a single driver, in which case it's 90. Don't have to worry about any success penalties to be added or anything like that. So once the pit stop is done, on our timing screens it says the pit stop time, which is in to out, so we can see if anyone's been naughty and gone under the 87-second mark. Obviously, Brendan Leach needed to do a 90-second pit stop because he's a single driver entry, and that's what lost him a little bit of time. I'm curious to see where Brendan Leach is on track and how much traffic he has around him. I think he's all right. There he is. Good pickup. And he is absolutely in clear air, so he's able to get his head down. Yellow flag fluttering ahead of him, weirdly, because the race control board doesn't mention anything about a yellow flag. But Leach is in a nice position here. He's been put into clear air.
And this is exactly what you need. You don't want to have to worry about traffic holding you up on the lap. Now there is a car stationary on the way through the hairpin, so that's why we're yellow in Sector 2. It has now been updated, but we have indeed got a stationary car at the hairpin. Now, I didn't quite see who that was, but they've at least parked it quite up close to the marshal post, so hopefully we'll be able to see who that is before too long. It is the 20, so that is very unfortunate, and it's game over for Vandenberg. So that's very disappointing indeed for the crew. Obviously, Robert Vandenberg in the HBR car, so that's game over. Getting out of the car, rather frustrated, bitterly disappointed, but at least it's not enraged, it's just crestfallen.
Father-son entry there. Another chance tomorrow. Everything pointing in the right direction. No damage to the car by the looks of things. So curious as to what's happened. But good work to have it parked up in a safe place. Use a bit of gravity to get it completely off the race circuit. We can continue racing without the need for a safety car.
Yeah, somebody's read the rule book very clearly, haven't they? A big dive up the inside from one of the Oregon cars there. in the final turn. Another opportunistic overtaking move. A great fleet of the Oregons there. One of my favorite color schemes in world motorsport. They just look sensational. And also, they have my favorite team emblem of any race team. It's very 90s, very retro, and it looks very stylish indeed. Meanwhile, is that Mattia Michelotto coming off the final turn on his own? Well, there is Leach. So Leach is obviously trying to find his way back into position. He's now up to 21st. So that means there are 20 cars in front yet to pit. There's the 28, still going strong. Amaury Bonduel. And behind him is Hugo de Wilde, who has taken over from Rodrigo Testa in the Iron Lynx number 10. There he is. So you do get the sort of sense of opportunity now from these boys as they will try and make very big gains in terms of their lap times. What are their lap times like in comparison? Well, a 2:02.1 for Brendan Leach last time, which is absolutely identical to what Michelotto and Shandorf are setting.
Yeah, remember Brendan Leach pre-pit stop was 5th position and also had a 3-second longer pit stop than all of those around him, because there's no other single driver entries around him at the moment. So if he equals the times ahead of him, then he, in theory, should be in 5th position once our leaders pit. But it really does depend on who's being compromised at what points. And at the moment, certainly you'd say Brendan Leach is not being compromised at all.
So now we've got pit stops from the likes of Cabarrus, Iannello, Matheson and Pecoraro. They've all come into the pits, so too has Charlie Martin, and so too has the former leader in Pro-Am, the 88 car of Bruno. So Jean-Francois Bruno, who was leading the AM category at one point and obviously fell away down the order. Now this is exactly what the leaders didn't want. Michelotto and Shandorf are now in the traffic, which is exactly where Brendan Leach doesn't find himself. So this is where he can really start to make those gains. Mattia Michelotto, though, doesn't want to lose too much time in the traffic. He comes straight in, and so too does Shandorf. So Shandorf is essentially shadowing what Michelotto has opted to do, and he'll make a big gain on the brakes there at the timing line.
Sensible work from VSR, seeing the traffic as they were approaching it and getting those cars out of it. There's only 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining as well of the pit stop, so actually they didn't have any option but to pit on this lap anyhow. But how much were they compromised by that traffic on that last lap? Because it can really play massive effect. We're going to watch these 2 pit stops. They should be absolutely equal in terms of time. Don't be too quick though, because you will get a penalty if you're under that 87-second mark. And remember, the 87-second mark is pit in to pit out, not necessarily how long you are stationary. So there's a little bit of maths that needs to be done to work out the absolute ultimate time. Here's Brendan Leach, knowing that this is his chance, knowing this is the lap to really put the hammer down, and 4-wheel drifting through the Schumacher S's.
It's time for the young Belgian Gilles Stadsbader to earn his bread and butter, because he's going to have big pressure on the outlap, because this man, Brendan Leach, obviously having done the first stint, yes, he lost 3 seconds in the pit stop, but he's going to have the knowledge of the circuit, what it's doing at this moment under these temperatures. Gilles Stadsbader is going to come into this race car cold. He will have very limited knowledge of the circuit at this temperature with this amount of sunlight, because they haven't had a massive amount of running in these conditions. But Brendan Leach is going to be solidly behind both Stadsbader and Alexau. But is Brendan Leach going to have a good outlap? That's where it's going to be. Careful, Alex! Goodness me! He almost took a huge chunk out of Gilles Stadsbader's splitter.
First lap on the brakes, first corner on the brakes, and they weren't quite where he was expecting. Don't expect Alexau to be able to stick with Gilles Stadsbader at all. Martin Rieber also in the number 70 machine just behind these two also will not be expected as the AM driver in that Pro-Am entry. And that will give Lurgam Ali in 4th position the opportunity to get up through the field. I think then that's where we will see Brendan Leach fall into line. I think he should be 5th, but we'll let the timing sort itself out first.
We should point out, of course, that Lurgam Ali is no longer behind the wheel of that car. It should be Söderström, because they've had problems with that transponder all season long when, in terms of letting us know who's behind the wheel at any one time. So Schunderwood, Fomanek and Blochman have all managed to get behind the wheel of their respective cars, but Brendan Leach, I think, was able to get past the pits before them, so I think Leach is actually now behind Reiber in 4th position by best. Well, we'll find out when they come through at the end of this lap, and there's still a lot of traffic to deal with. So Leach has indeed come through into 4th position behind Reiber. So he managed to beat Soderstrom and Ali out of the pit. So up to 4th position then comes Brendan Leach. But now, this is where the story really starts for Brendan Leach. He can try and get himself onto the podium, and he needs to, because with Michelotto and Stadsbader now out in the lead of the race, of course, Gilles Stadsbader's got an opportunity here with Au as a comfortable buffer. Diving up the inside, this is a good attack from Kuppens to try and get through on the inside of Harmsen. And this is obviously in the middle of the traffic. So a very interesting contretemps between those two averted. This is a replay of what happened earlier on. Whoopsie-daisy, the 88 just getting caught up there. That's Lee, who had to back out of it there at that particular point. So Kerong Lee just avoiding the contact. Meanwhile, the 90 of Harmsen still under pressure from Kuppens. And these two having a nice little duel for each other. It's all going to be about who has the stones to go for the overtaking move when the chips are down.
Looks like most pit stops have been done within the correct time. Just maybe Bonduelle actually a little bit fast. He's on his own, isn't he? So he should have done a 30 pit, 1 minute 30 pit stop. And it looks as though it might have been a bit fast. We are seeing penalties given out to the number 50 and the number 17 for slightly fast pit stops. So race control filtering through, but it's quite an easy investigation because it's on the timing screens already.
Indeed, as long as you have done your job correctly, then you're okay. But 126.7 is a bit of a slang dunk, sadly, for Lecanto. And it means that they've obviously gone too far over. 87 seconds from pit in to pit out. Unless you are on your own, then it's a 90-second pit in to pit out.
Yeah, Bonduelle did, if I'm reading that correctly, it's 33. Oh, so it was really slow. Okay.
Yeah, 133.7. So they actually took, a little bit longer than they should have done, to be fair. Interestingly, how long did Bolger take? 1 minute 30.3. So he's working his way forward. Bang on. But now it's all about this man, Gilles Stadsbader, coping with the pressure. Not that there's much from Alex Au at the moment. However, Brendan Leach, his objective is clear. That's Reiber in front. Go get him.
Lights on, just to attract Martin Rieber's attention as much as possible. The man who owns Brutal Fish, software engineer, who has been putting a lot of his effort into motorsport over a good 5 or 6 year period, front-wheel drive touring cars for the last couple of years. And did I see a hand come out the window from Brendan Leach to say thank you to Martin Rieber? I think there was a hand that came out the window. And considering how tiny the little slot is for his hand to come out, that was good effort from Brendan. And Martin getting cleanly out of the way. Martin can learn lots from watching what Brendan Leach can do. Front-wheel drive touring car to rear-wheel drive Lamborghini Super Trofeo. A big jump, a big change. But Martin Rieber with his fun bus here this weekend in the Nürburgring. Absolutely loving life in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo paddock. He just says it's simple, fun, fast racing. Nothing more to it than that. And some motorsports, certainly in his TCR world, is not quite the same when you're having to argue about balance of performance every 2 seconds.
Yeah, fitting the hand through the slot as you overtake another driver.
I might be completely wrong, but it did look like he put his hand out the window.
I mean, these aren't exactly the best drive-through equipped machines, are they, to lean out the window and grab something or wave to your colleague? But even so, good to see Brendan Leach pushing. And what are his lap times? 2:03.0, so he's 2 seconds a lap quicker than Au. As Stadsbader, oh no, that's the sister car, isn't it? That's Spinelli going wheel to wheel with Zonzini as they battle away for 17th. This is going to be a masterclass in the undercut switcheroo maneuver, is it? No, Zonzini is resisting. So Zonzini not letting Spinelli have the satisfaction of finishing that move off. And now they're going to continue this tussle down through the left-hander, dropping down the hill again, holding on through the right. Zonzini absolutely determined. Come on, is that all you've got? You're going to have to try something much more impressive to get past me today. So down to the braking zone again. And Zonzini just overcooking it on the brakes. This is exactly what Spinelli needs. Back on the power again. Up the hill. He won't get him into the left or the right. But when they get to the next chicane, this might be the chance for Spinelli. This is very eager from Emanuele Zonzini to hold on to the position. It's not the only battle that's going on around the course as well. There's plenty more still to focus in on. As further back, we have the number 4 of Rostan leading and having a lot of pressure from Rindoni behind, and this is of course for the victory in the AM category.
And Gabriel Rindoni leading AM at the moment by 4.5 points. Remember, half points for the second race in Spa because it was cut so short. They didn't get enough racing laps to reward full points. But Gabriel Rindoni is the leader of that championship, ahead of Coupens and Feligioni, which was the car that dropped to the tail of the field. But we did check in with Coupens just a few moments ago, and I think he's back up to 5th in class, or no, 6th in class right now. So making progress forwards, having lost all of the advantage from qualifying.
And watch out as well for Ibrahim Badawai, who is in 3rd position in the AM category behind these two and on the road as well. So that's a mistake from Marc Rostan. Marc Rostan drops it in the lead of the AM category, so he lost that, I'm afraid, all on his own.
That's what pressure does to you, though, especially when it's battling over AM category honours. The drivers in the AM category feel that pressure so much more. It occupies so much more of their brain when they've got a car behind him. And he's got his hazards on whilst he gets himself back up to speed. Was there contact, or was it all on his own? Because he's actually not quite up to full speed here. No, he's all completely on his own, isn't he?
Did he clip something? No, he just locked the brakes by the look of it.
Maybe just changed down too early, locked the rears. It doesn't feel as though he's back to attack, though, does it? He's still cruising. So whether he feels as though there's an issue with that car. Oh, someone's having an issue further back. Who was that?
It's definitely going to need a replay, isn't it?
I only heard it.
Yeah, absolutely, I heard it as well. So Stadsbader just working his way through the traffic. It's the Boutsen VDS car that's gone around. That is the 18 of Dubelli. Well, that was very vocal. That was the reason we heard it, of course, is because it was right behind the recovering Marc Rostan. So maybe we'll get another look at that from a different angle, because obviously we were already looking at Marc Rostan, so it'll need to be another angle that we search for it, but never mind. A spin and a rejoin there as Gilles Stadsbader continues to run in front of Alex Au, but there is Brendan Leach. So Brendan Leach is battling away to try and work his way forward. He goes round the far side of the 77, just about staying out of trouble there, Hernandez Ortega.
Making it work for it. It's not really what you need when you've got 8 seconds to find on the leader of the championship that you are fighting the championship with, and being asked to go all the way around the outside by the back marker, Hernandez Ortega.
Yeah, Brendan Leach was on a 2:07.2 last time, so 3 seconds slower than we expect him to be.
Yeah.
So that's definitely hampered him big time. And Brendan Leach trying his best to work his way further forward, but that's really going to hamper him. He's going to run out of time, even to try and attack Alex Au.
Has he made a mistake in the middle sector? He's lost 3 seconds in the middle sector on the last lap, on a sector which is only 45 seconds long. So that doesn't sound like traffic to me. That sounds, because he was good through the final sector. So maybe an error from Brendan Leach on the last lap.
Either that or an error from somebody else, and he had to take avoiding action. We'll have to look back and maybe see where Brendan Leach lost ground. However, he's trying his best to make up for it, just charging his way through these back markers like scissors through wet newspaper. I am not going to slow down. I have every chance of getting to second place, and I might just be able to eke something out of Gilles Stadsbader to take the win. But looking at the lap times at the moment, even when Stadsbader is on pace, and even when Leach is on pace, Stadsbader appears to have enough in terms of lap time and advantage to hold on.
Yeah, back up to good speed now, 44.5 through the middle sector of the lap this time. It was a 48.5 last time, so really has lost. The other person is losing a lot of ground, Martin Rieber, on that last lap. I think he's lost a lot of ground on the cars around him. That's coming into the back of shot. I think he may have even lost position in class. He's lost 6th, 7th, 8th. He's down to 9th position. Now crosses the line, so stays in second position in class, Martin Rieber, but now has Schondevoort in the 89 car directly behind him.
I'm afraid to say that Marc Rostan has brought the car into the pits, so clearly whatever it was that cost him his position in the lead of the AM category, it looks as though it's curtains. And he's not the only one in pit lane either, because also Wilfried Kasselborn in the CMR car has brought it into the pits as well, and it looks like both of them might be out of this race. Meanwhile, Tribodini has got pressure from Moretti. Moretti all over the back of him, who are going to build, having got past Tribadini, and now they're trying to pick their way through the traffic. Pick a line, go for it, and hope that you've got enough momentum. Meanwhile, the 61 Moretti really wants his opportunity here. Marzio Moretti really gunning after Hugo de Wilde, and Stefan Tribadini just in front of them. Stefan Tribadini, that's the car in front of us actually, because Hugo de Wilde has already got through in the number 10. And there's a spun car right in the middle of the fray there.
Yeah, yellow flags out at the hairpin. Didn't see who that was as we whipped past him, but the yellow flags would have meant there was no overtaking through there as we look at the AM class leader. Finally, the green machine gets himself facing the right direction. Is that Kieron Lee, 88?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I tell you what, the AM leader has changed again, because it was Marc Rostin, then of course it was Rindoni, and now it's Ibrahim Badaway.
Wow. Let's not forget that Ibrahim Badaway is only on his 5th race of ever in life. Did a couple of arrive and drive karting races in Egypt and decided he wanted to be a Super Trofeo driver, would you believe? And he finds out that his ambition is equal to his talent because he's been so good in AM all year and finds himself at the head of the field.
Well, that is an astonishing turn of events for Ibrahim Badaway. I mean, what if he manages to convert this into a race win in only his 5th car race? That would just be astonishing if he can keep this together. And let's be fair, if you're going to go racing at all, your first spell in a racing car of any kind, you are brave if you're doing it in a Super Trofeo car.
Absolutely. Not the conventional path, is it? But he's made it work. And it's nice to see those kind of drivers being able to feel so comfortable in this machine. It means the machine is built well for an AM driver.
Right, Brendan Leach has got the wick turned up big style because he's now closed in to within less than a second of Al, but he's also close to within 7 seconds of Gilles Stadsparder. So he's made big gains on not just Al in front of him, but also Stadsparder in front of him. So if Leach can get through relatively quickly, he's only going to have 6 minutes and 40 seconds, which is very minimal time to do anything about Gilles Stadsparder in front. He's got to hope that the Belgian has a lot of traffic to deal with, but also make the bid as Alex Al makes it relatively easy for him.
I suppose for Alex Al, he is well ahead now of Martin Rieber, who's lost a chunk of time and track position. So for the class victory in Pro-Am, Alex Al is absolutely shoe-in. I'm not sure Martin Rieber is particularly comfortable in 2nd position, and actually 3rd has changed to Formanek because Chondevers lost a position there on the last lap. There's plenty going on in the Pro-Am category, but sensible driving from Alex Al, just let him go.
This is the battle for the victory in the AM category. Rindoni's caught back up to Ibrahim Badaway, having taken the lead away from Rostin and now lost it again. Ibrahim Badaway is having a real duel to try and win this AM race. They are 25th and 26th, but it doesn't matter. This is for the victory in your class. That's all that matters at this point. So Badaway trying to hang on from Rindoni, and this is terrific racing from the two of them. Gabriel Rindoni, having had the opportunity, has now lost out to Ibrahim Badaway, and the Egyptian really wants to keep this victory firmly in his grasp. He's doing exactly what he needs to do to defend as well. I tell you what, he has learnt fast. Is that a problem for Rindoni? Rindoni slowing.
Oh. Almost looks like he didn't select the correct gear, does it? Because he's got back going up to speed again, but that was curious. Just no acceleration coming out of the turn. He's safe in 2nd position because there's a 7-second gap to the next of our AM competitors. But that's a shame because that was looking good.
Now, it was looking to be a very tasty battle, but if you're Ibrahim Badaway, you are grinning from ear to ear because you look in your rearview mirror and you see that the number 21, Gabriel Rindoni, in the Lippert Motorsport car is getting smaller and smaller, and you think, excellent, I've only got to last for another 5 minutes at this. So it's exactly what he wanted to see. Now that, I do believe, is the number 5 GT3 Poland car of Gregor Machulski just behind. So Rindoni is not actually as safe in 2nd position as he would like to be, and there behind, that I believe is the 32 of Pera Matic in the Benaldi car. Meanwhile, further ahead, and this battle is still going strong, Oregon versus the 27 car of CMR, Stefan Tribadini, desperately trying to hang on in front of Marzio Moretti.
Tribadini a little bit loose in the middle part of the hairpin there. Just lost the tail momentarily. Needs to hook the apex on the left-hand side because it sends you to the right. Be careful through there now. Great to be able to ride on board and see exactly what Moretti is doing, how the circuit helps you through these corners as well. Moretti gets the line right, Tremendini just does not, misses the apex again.
Such a physical circuit this, you really have to push the car to try and get the most out of it. You've got to be brave over these curves as well. So Marzio Moretti following in the wheel tracks of Stefan Tribodini through that really short chicane. There's the mistake from Tribodini. This is exactly what Marzio Moretti wanted, trying to squeeze in on the inside line. But Tribodini didn't give him enough space, but he's not going to get a good turn in. Marzio Moretti has it.
Oh, I thought Tribodini was heading off to the Nordschleife there. Just gave him enough room and found himself without any grip on the outside line. Good hassling from Moretti. It took half a lap, but there was missed apex after missed apex for Tribodini, struggling perhaps with tyres with just 3 minutes remaining. As we look further back, what about Brutal Fish? Still in second position. Oh no, Martin Rieber's lost a huge amount of positions. Down to 4th in class now. There's been a right shuffle because Hugo de Wilde is down in 16th spot now.
Yeah, that's all to the benefit of Nigel Sundervoort in the 89 Iron Lynx, now in second position. And up to 3rd has come Bronek Formanek in the Michenek ACCR car.
Hang on, Bruno de Wilde's gone into the pits as well. So Dan Arrow up to 8th position. And this is what happened at the chicane.
3 into 1 isn't going to work well. Oh, fisticuffs.
So yeah, that was Martin Rieber on the outside, turning in and finding 2 cars was inside. Formanek was the multicoloured 66 car, lost positions, and Hugo de Wilde on the inside with too much damage to continue, sadly.
Well, Gilles Stadsbader is still trying to pull away out front. Here he is. The gap between him and Brendan Leach has come down, but crucially, it's only to 6.1 seconds at the end of the last lap. So Stadsbader is being caught, but crucially, by not enough to break a sweat for the Belgian. He just needs to keep going, and he will be able to finish in front of Brendan Leach and pull out not a dominant lead in the championship, but certainly a decisive one at this point.
And the thing that really stems from qualifying for Brendan, because starting the race on row 4, gave himself traffic in the early laps, had to get through that traffic, and then had a mistake in this stint as well, which cost him 3 seconds. The 2 of those combined is 6 seconds quite easily, and he could find himself be battling with that 6 car had he not had those 2 little issues. So needs to reset for tomorrow, can go again tomorrow and bring the gap down. It's not all over for the championship. He is still in second position, but it's very much the 2 of them together. Now, we've got another car facing the wrong direction there. Quite sure who that was, or where it was, actually.
No, indeed. So, bit of an... Well, that's, I think that's at turn 2, actually. So, has that car got moving again, or is it still there? No, it's still there. It's on fire. So, that's unfortunate. There's certainly some flames coming off the exhaust. So, bit of a difficulty there. That's definitely game over for that particular car as the 81 and 28. Let's have a look at what happened. Oops. And I think it might have... Yeah, you can see the steam coming off the number 90 that's had the pirouette. So that is a very unfortunate end for Harmsen, who we saw battling earlier on, but very much game over. As we watch 81 versus 9 there, this is Ali, or Söderström, I should say, trying to work his way back through. But here is the leader coming through our picture now. Gilles Stadsbader hunting down his teammate and has turned up the dial quite nicely. 5.8 seconds on Brendan Leach. Another solid effort from Gilles Stadsbader in what is turning into a very impressive season for him and the Vincenzo Sospiri racing team.
Just before he gets to the flag, just check in with that incident we saw at the chicane. They've given Formanek a penalty, a 10-second penalty, so that drops him off the Pro-Am podium from 12th position and gives Zonzini 3rd place. We saw that mega battle between Zonzini and Spinelli a bit earlier on, and they've got themselves up into podium contention. Zonzini, if it doesn't change on this lap, will have that 3rd spot.
So Spinelli's got a final chance. We'll have to see if he makes something of it in the final couple of corners, but here comes your man. In fact, I think I just saw Spinelli and Zonzini battling for it going into the final lap. They'll have one more lap to battle for it, but Gilles Stadsbader is going to come through to take the victory for VSR in race 1 here at the Nürburgring. Brendan Leach, great drive, 2nd position. He made the best of what he could get out of this race. 5.9 seconds the deficit of the flag. Good solid work from Alex Au. He was never going to keep up with Stadsbader and Leach, but he concedes to Bonduel in the overall positions. Ali got through as well, but Au will take the victory nonetheless in the Pro-Am category. And this battle still raging on the final lap as drivers try and get something out of the final couple of corners. That's Zonzini, I think, trying to hold on in front of Spinelli to the flag. It's going to be Schundervoort who comes through in second place, but with that penalty for Formanek, it will be Zonzini just in front of Loris Spinelli. He's going to take the third on the podium. And how about this man, Ibrahim Badawi, in only his 5th car race of any kind, is going to come through if he can just hold this together in the final couple of corners to take the win. Rindoni has actually dropped back now even further, so Rindoni has fallen behind Gregor Machulski, behind Renaud Kuppens. But Ibrahim Badawi is going to have one final charge to the chicane. Look, you've got daylight, clear daylight between yourself and Gregor Machulski. Just take it easy in the final chicane. Don't overcook it, don't overdrive, bring it home. And Ibrahim Badawi is going to take a convincing victory in the AM category out of all places, the Nürburgring. What a satisfying moment.
On the podium twice in Paul Ricard, just missing out the top step though, missed out in Spa, and therefore his 5th complete car race, he's the top step of the podium. It's been a bit of a physical one in AM though. Kuppens comes across the line in 3rd position, and that was a car that was facing the wrong direction in the first half of the race, and so it's been quite tricky. Nobody really wants to win it by the looks of things, but Gilles Stadsbader with a really good second stint to take the overall victory, all set up by a really solid first stint and good qualifying, most importantly from Michelotto.
Yeah, really good partnership, these two. Mathieu and Gilles definitely seem to have good chemistry and a good working relationship that converts into brilliant pace from both drivers. And that's so important in these races, to make sure that there's synchronicity between you and your colleague. You need to be on the same page. You need to be getting the maximum out of the car. So you need to be helping each other to move forward. And for young Gilles Stadsbader, he really has found a great companion in Mattia Michelotti. So a little bit of flotsam and jetsam to deal with in the closing stages, but otherwise, incredibly, despite that spin, Harmsen did actually come through and finish the race, despite those steam and flames coming off the car. But it's a victory for Michelotto and Stadsbader in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing number 6. Then Brendan Leach and Amory Bonduel, the Lone Rangers, in 2nd and 3rd. Soderstrom and Ali coming home in 4th place. The winner in the Pro-Am category, Ali and Schandorf in the Target Racing car. Iron Lynx coming 2nd and 3rd in category for the Pro-Ams with Schundervoort and Berman and Colombini and Zanzini. You've got to go back to 24th position for the Ibrahim Badawi Barn Dance, 5th position for the Lamborghini Roma car to take the victory in front of Machulski and Lewandowski in the GT3 Poland car, and the Boutsen VDS machine of Filigioni and Kuppens on the podium. Great result for them. A few drivers, unfortunately, falling away in the closing stages. Tester and De Wilde dropping out of the race in the closing stages. Rostin had a good chance to go with Gosselin to take the victory in the AM category, and it all fell apart. But it didn't for these two. Stadsbader and Michelotto, the young boy wonders, really starting to make some waves. If they steal the championship away from Brendan Leach this year, it really will show you just how sensational a job they have done. And it's been a fabulous performance from the VSR team. Gemma Scott is going to go down there to meet with the stars of the race.
Boys, congratulations. The joy is absolutely evident on you there. But we spoke just before the race, Gilles, and you said, all we need to do is convert this to a win, and you did it.
Yeah, I'm quite speechless actually. Yeah, I'm really happy with this race. Didn't expect it, but we managed to win it and extend our lead in the championship. So I'm happy about this race, really happy.
Well, congratulations, you drove brilliantly at the end, but you set it up from the beginning.
Yes, I'm very happy, especially for Gilles, because for you is your first time in this track. Yeah. Thank you, Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, and my family. Thank you.
Congratulations to both of you. Go celebrate.
Ricard, race 1, victory. Spa, race 1, victory. And now Nürburgring race 1 victory. They haven't managed to get a victory in race 2 yet, but that is a pretty consistent way to go about your racing, especially when you have no experience in the circuit.
No, indeed, and it really does help you in terms of mounting a title challenge. If you can be fast in at least one of the 2 races for the entirety of the season, then considering how competitive and even the competition is, you're giving yourself the best possible chance. As long as you get it done in one race over the weekend and score maximum points wherever possible, then you really can string things together. It's an opening campaign, the first half of the year that the VSR team can be very proud of indeed. And a fabulous run from Stadtsbader and Michelotto. They really did a fabulous job. Good to see Brendan Leach really charging for it as well in front of Amaury Bonduel. So some good battles from them as well. And a really exciting opening Lamborghini Super Trofeo race here at the Nürburgring. Right from the start, we knew that Michelotto versus Schwandorf would be interesting in the opening phase of the race, with Brendan Leach needing to make up as much time as humanly possible. The opening lap was very close and very competitive, but fortunately, clean as a whistle. Everybody kept it pointing in the right direction. And despite a few near misses, every driver came to play and put on a show and did a great job with it. A couple of moments here, there and everywhere, but everybody was absolutely determined to make a good result come their way. And in the opening stages, it was all about Michelotto trying to shadow his lap times and give Schwandorf a run for his money. There were some big, bold moves, particularly from Sebastian Balthazar in the mix. We had a great duel coming out of the pits between Dan Arrow and the very talented Oregon driver, the 44, Pedro Ibrahim. They ended up 8th and 10th by the end of the race. And then in the battle for the AM category, it all went wrong for Marc Rostin. A spin would then lead to a mechanical failure. We thought it would be Rindoni that would take the win from there, but even he had troubles of his own, dealing with the Egyptian talent, Ibrahim Badawi. So, a great battle as Brendan Leach fought his way past Alex Au, who would go on to take the win in the Pro-Am category. Contact would really shake things up in the AM category as the podium was hotly contested. But out in front, Gilles Stadtsbader made it look like child's play. Alex Au would take the win in Pro-Am. The AM win going the way of Ibrahim Badawi in his 5th car race. But for Stadtsbader and Michelotto, it's once again a race 1 win in Super Trofeo. So a fabulous run then from Gilles Stadtsbader and Mattia Michelotto. They did a fantastic job over the course of the race to fend off from the charging Brendan Leach. And with a 10-second time penalty added to the 66 car's time of Formanek, he now, as we mentioned and as Ben alluded to, drops out of the 3rd position they would have taken. And that goes the way of Emanuele Zonzini in his Ironlix car, just in behind Schunderverd, who finishes up in 2nd place. So fascinating battles then in Super Trofeo, and it's obviously a good opportunity for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing to extend their lead over the Lippert Motorsport crew, as they obviously only took the lead of that championship after qualifying when they got the bonus point for pole position. So an excellent run, and they continued the duel, and they continued to put in an excellent display. So Brendan Leach there in 2nd position in front of Amaury Bonduel, who managed to come home in 3rd position as well, with Largimali and Oscar Söderström coming through in 4th position in both pro and overall, with Alex Au just hanging on in the 81 from Frederick Schwandorf to come through for the victory in the Pro-Am category. And obviously those competitors are going to give us quite the show as they come forward for their podium ceremony. 3 podiums, of course, as we will have the Pro category, the Pro-Am category, and the Am category. A good opening race of the weekend then, as they continue to put on a good display over the course of the season. It really has been an exciting duel, and as we mentioned earlier, of course, Vincenzo Sospiri Racing now have a habit of taking the win in the first race of the weekend. They did it at Paul Ricard, they did it at Spa, and now they do it here again at the Nürburgring. So a great start to the season for them, and in the first half of the year, that's 3 wins taken care of at least for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. They could convert it again tomorrow to make it 4 out of 6, and that would definitely put them in bright spirits for the rest of the weekend. As you can see there, some very happy racing drivers about to head out onto the podium. Michelotto and Stadtsbader, Brendan Leach and Amaury Bonduel up in the top 3 positions of the grid. So Brendan Leach doing everything he possibly could to try and charge his way further forward. It was always going to be very tricky to make up that amazing deficit that he had coming into this one, knowing that he would have to take the extra 3 seconds time penalty at the pits, which of course Amaury Bonduel had to as well. But then to charge after Gilles Stadtsbader on his first visit to the Nürburgring, he sustained all the pressure, soaked it up, He lost a little bit of pace, but certainly didn't lose track position. And their best lap time was still a good 0.8 of a second quicker than anything Brendan Leach was able to get out of the race today. So timing it to perfection, it's always very tricky, but they've done themselves proud over the course of this first Lamborghini Super Trofeo race. All ready to go and do it all again tomorrow, of course, for the second race of the day. It'll be myself, Jake Sanson, and Ben Constanduros on the microphone for that once again, and it'll be Gemma Scott down in the pits again. But what a fantastic start to the weekend for Messrs Michelotto and Stadtwader, as they will take the victory with just a single driver either side of them. Brendan Leach for the Lippert Motorsport team and Amaury Bonduel for BDR, competition by Group Prom. So we're about to see a very excited and very satisfied Michelotto and Stadtwader. They'll come to the podium. Full credit to Brendan Leach and Amaury Bonduel. Yes, they had the advantage of not having to change driver, but they also had the deficit of the 3 seconds added to their pit stops. So it wouldn't have been easy to carry that momentum into the second stint. But they managed to make up the time necessary to get to the overall podium. So Amaury Bonduel comes on to third position on the podium. A very solid run from him. And Brendan Leach coming through in second position. He did a great job to fight himself into second position. Totally deserves it. And he looks fairly satisfied with that, considering he started on the 4th row of the grid, charging through from 7th to 2nd. He'll be very pleased. But here comes Mattia Michelotto and Gilles Stadtwader. They come through for a fabulous victory here in fine style. And of course, the Italian national anthem. So, for the third time in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe competition 2023, the winner of the first race of the weekend is Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, number 6. Giorgio Sanna will give the trophies and prizes to the competitors on the podium. But for Amaury Bonduel and Brendan Leach, they may take silverware, but they don't take the glory. That belongs to Gilles Stadtwader and Mattia Michelotto, who extend their lead in the championship heading into race 2 tomorrow, where no doubt they'll be doing their best to convert it into a second race win in the same weekend for the first time this year. From Jake Sanson, great battles to come tomorrow here at the Nürburgring in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe. Well done to VSR.